Hello, you guys. So, I wasn't sure if I should be making this video or not, considering the times that we're in. Is it in good taste to make videos about things that we enjoy? I don't know. Uh, but at the same time, I can also say I think I've made as many videos regarding Corona as I want to, and you guys all know my opinion on it. Oh, and really quick, I do have an email address now. So start emailing me because I wanted to start talking to people and maybe do like online interviews with people in other parts of the world and how they're feeling and how they're handling it and what their fears and concerns are in this very strange time that we live in. But also, I'll put that down below. And now we are going to do my March reading book review. I always go in the order that I read them and not in the order necessarily of favorite to least favorite. Look, I go like one really white hair right here. Yeah. All right. So the first book I read is I finally read the last book in the Broken Earth trilogy, Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin. It's a 3-star. And the first book, the fifth season, was my favorite book of last year. I just absolutely adored it. I thought it was so clever. I love her writing, and I loved her writing through the second and the third book. I really like her writing. But I do have to say the interest in the story continuously fizzled out. So the second part was definitely like one of those second book syndrome sufferers where just it was just kind of like building more plot, adding more things to different characters, but it wasn't overly interesting. And then this final book, I don't know. It just didn't blow me away. I didn't really care for the ending, although it is a melancholy ending, which I generally do enjoy. But, just within the couple of weeks since today's today's April 1st. So just from having read this a month ago, I've actually already completely started forgetting what the plot was. So that's generally an indicator that I wasn't that invested in it. But I do think that N.K. Jemisin is an amazing writer. So, and I do recommend at least reading the first book in this. So that's a 3-star. Then I read, as part of my reading theme, where I said I want to read a nonfiction book. I'm going to try to read at least one nonfiction book per month. I read 100 Nasty Women of History by Hannah Jewell. This book was, I actually don't know if any booktuber reviewed it, but I saw a lot of booktubers saying, I'm really excited to read this. I'm really excited to read this. And then nobody actually that I've seen review it. And I'm wondering if that's because it's actually kind of crap. Conceptually, I really liked it. So basically, Hannah Jewell, she took women that were significant throughout history, but are just generally not mentioned in our history, aren't talked about enough, and she wanted to kind of make a shout out to them and say, we need to be teaching about our significant and important women. And I really love that concept, and I really wanted to read about these women and be impressed by these women and enjoy learning about these women, because history, I have no problems with admitting that history is very winner focused, whoever won, and male focused. So I would not take that away, and I think that's true. I didn't like how this was handled, though. So I kind of thought this was, I thought this was going to be an actual academic biography about all these different women throughout history, and kind of what their significance was. But this is written very Valley Girl, and they're like, so we totally had this princess, and she lived like 200 years ago, and she was all like, no, you are not gonna kill people in my country, you know. So, and I'm not joking, like that's literally the way she wrote this. Like it's so unsophisticated, so unacademic, and I kind of think that Hannah Jewell did this to maybe attract younger readers who find nonfiction boring. I can kind of understand why she would do it, but for me personally, it didn't work. Like I just thought it was really gimmicky and silly. And the other thing that I didn't like is this woman. So she actually used to work at BuzzFeed, which everybody should know by now. BuzzFeed is the absolute worst thing ever that ever happened to society. It's so beyond ridiculously woke and just cringy in my opinion. And she's I can tell like she had some humor in here, and a couple of times the jokes landed, but basically this whole book is just like women are amazing and men are shit. If you're a man, you're a piece of shit. If you like men, then you're a piece of shit. If you think that there is a single man out there in the world who ever did anything in any shape or form or was any way, shape or form a good person, you're a piece of shit, because anything to do with men and males is absolutely terrible, and they're just these completely terrible human beings. And I'm just getting really tired of this narrative. You know, I've already told you guys many times, I don't believe in having to pull other people down to try to raise yourself up. Why can't we talk about how amazing women are without having to say, yeah, women are amazing and men are shit? Like, no, men are amazing, women are amazing. They're equally amazing. Like, there's bad men and there's bad women, you know? So, and there's actually like paragraphs where like she reviews women who are like murderers and all kinds of stuff, and she's like, you know, but because she's a woman, we should forgive her because women have it hard in the world, and so if you're a woman and you kill somebody, then that should be forgiven. And I'm like, okay, it's just ridiculous. It's just so pandering to this third wave feminism, and like, I don't know. I think if I ever met Hannah Jewell in real life, her and I will probably it will probably lead to punches, because she just seems like a completely cringe human being to me, just completely entitled and just a perpetual victim and a crybaby, and everything is just so hard because of her circumstance. I don't like people like that. So conceptually good. Not a bad writer if you're into the gimmickiness of this, and I do have to say that some of her jokes landed well. Overall, would I recommend this if you're truly interested in knowing about women throughout history? No, I would say try to get some kind of academic text. So for me, this is a 2-star. Then I read The Wedding Date by Jasmine Gilroy. Is that how you say her name? This is a terrible book. This is a really terrible book. Not that I was expecting a lot from it, because it is a romance. You know, the romance genre is not really known for its amazing writing and its amazing plots. So I wasn't going into this book thinking this book was going to just be amazing and blow me away, and the plot was going to be like great. And I generally don't even like romance. The reason I was attracted to this is because the romance is between a black woman and a white man, and for some reason I'm really drawn to black women, white men romances, just because I find it's probably the most rare that you see. Like, you see black men with white women a lot, or white men with Asian women a lot. Like, these are couplings that you see quite often, but you don't really see a lot of couplings with black women and white guys. So I just was like, oh, this is kind of different. It's a different take, and I would enjoy that. This book to me is such a counter argument to this book, and it kind of is where I personally just find third wave feminism so confusing. And you know, because in this book it's just like all men are shit and you have to treat women this way, and how dare you, better not touch a woman, talk to a woman, think about a woman. You better not open the door for her. You better not. She is more than your equal. She is your queen, and men are just complete crap. And then in this book, this guy is actually really creepy. So they meet in the beginning of the book. So they meet in an elevator, and the next day he's supposed to go to his ex's and his best friend. They're getting married to their wedding, and he feels awkward because he doesn't have a date. So he spontaneously asks her out, and then they fall in love. But in that elevator, Betty, he's super creepy. Like, he's like looking into her purse, and he's kind of like, "Oh, you've got food in your purse. You should share that with me." And blah, blah, blah. And she's all like, "Hey, he's so cute. He's so cute." And then he asks her out right away. And when she says yes, he hugs her and touches her. And I feel like this is and she's just kind of like, "Oh my God, he's so cute and I love it," and all this kind of stuff. And it just kind of infuriated me, because we now live in a time when women, and I agree with this, you have no right to touch a woman. You have no right to be vulgar with a woman. You have no right to think in any way, shape, or form a woman owes you anything just because she's maybe friendly with you or whatever. But then kind of here, it's this thing where like, "Oh, well, if I think he's cute though, then he can hug me, and then he can be a little bit possessive, and then he can call me like 6 times a day, and it's cute, and oh my God, he's so into me, and he's so cute." And I'm like, this is such mixed bullshit messages. I'm kind of like, either you have to say this kind of behavior is not acceptable and it's creepy and cringy all the time, or you have to say it's not. You can't tell one guy because you don't find him attractive, like, "How dare you comment on my butt?" But then you see a guy that you think is hot, and he's kind of like nice ass, and she's like, "Oh my God, I'm so into him." I just find it so, like, that super hypocritical, and it just bothers me to no end. But yeah, overall, if you're into romance, I guess check it out. I don't think it's any better or worse than any other. The only problem I really have is with him. I think he's kind of creepy. He's incredibly possessive, and right away he starts touching her, and she's just really stupid and is just like really into it right from the beginning. Where I personally, if I met somebody in the elevator and within 20 minutes they were like hugging and touching on me and were like "Take me out on a date," then I'd be like, "You're weird." No. But 2-star. Overall, not a good reading month for me. Okay, then I read The Association of Small Bombs by Karen Mahajan. And this book talks about the terrorist attacks that occurred in India late 90s. And I really liked the way that this novel was organized. So basically, the first chapter, we basically you go through the same story kind of again and again and again, but you see it from different vantage points. Like, first you see what happened to the people who were victims of this terrorist attack and the bombings, and kind of how that impacted their life. Then you have a chapter where they talk about the actual terrorists and what motivated them to do this bombing and how they felt on after the bombing and how it impacted their life. And then you go into a unit or a chapter where it's like the people who were like on the fringe associated with it. So like the parents of one of the victims or something like that, and kind of how they go through how these things affect them. Yeah, and I actually really like the setup. The writing is decent. I don't know why I didn't connect to this book though. It's definitely not bad. It's not a book where I would tell people like don't read it. But I just felt really blah through the whole thing. I think a lot of it felt very repetitive. Probably because you do kind of see the same thing happening and then from different standpoints. And there was also just certain like something he did that I want to say I found brave, but at the same time I wasn't sure where the author was going with it, is he kind of humanized the terrorists. I I don't know. I wasn't sure how I felt about that. I'm like, these are bad people. They killed lots of people and children, and now you're kind of humanizing them. And he tried to, at the very end, like one of the main terrorists, he ends up being killed by other people in his terrorist group because they're afraid that he might narc on them. And it's almost like written to where we should sympathize with this guy, that he's being killed now with, I don't know, that kind of didn't sit right with me. Like I wasn't sure how to feel about it. And yeah, overall it's just not bad, but it's nothing special. 3-star. Okay, then I read the only book that I actually really enjoyed this month, and I'm going to insert a picture because I read it on Kindle, and it is called Women Talking by Miriam Toews. I thought this was a really interesting book. It's very, very short. I read it in one day, and it takes place in a Mennonite, I hope I'm saying that right, Mennonite colony in some undisclosed location. It is loosely based on a true story about these women in a Mennonite colony in Bolivia who were repetitively raped by the men in their community. And so, for those of you guys who don't know anything about Mennonites, I didn't really know anything about them before this. They are very devout people in their Catholic Christian offspring of their faith, and women have absolutely no rights in that faith. Like like women don't have a lot of rights or no rights in almost any faith when it is taken verbatim, and that doesn't matter if it's Christianity or Judaism or Hinduism or Islam. Like all these religions are sexist. That's not something that I'm going to argue with people. That's just a fact. So, and it's kind of like after, I forget how long it was, but after a certain amount of time when several women were raped, not even just several women, it's actually a really hard read because it's really disgusting. I mean, I think the youngest victim was like 3 years old, all the way up to like grandmothers. Like these men just basically raped any female that was part of their own. And you know, it's implied that there was, you know, one of the women's brothers was in on it, so he might have even raped his own mother and his own sister. And it's a really difficult read. It's very graphic in times and really heartbreaking. And yeah, it's just like the title says, it's these women of the community, they come together and they basically have a meeting and they discuss how they're going to handle this situation with what the men did to them, and if they feel like it's time to change their interpretation of their religious books and their religious background and make sure that women have more rights and more protection under their religion and stuff. And that one definitely was like a 4.5 star. It got a little bit repetitive towards the end, and nothing was kind of happening, even though it's such a short book. So I had to bump it down half a star. But definitely a recommend read if you haven't read it yet. Okay, then I read this big fatty. The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This book is crazy hyped on BookTube, and I fell for the hype, mostly because I was promised a lesbian love interest story. And for those of you guys who've ever followed my channel for a bit, you guys know that I love lesbians. I think lesbians are the superior version of gay men. Lesbians. So any kind of, I've read so many books by lesbians and with lesbians, and I feel like they're always handled so well, and there's actually like a plot, and it's interesting, and there's actual love, and the connections seem so real and deep and entrenched, and I like that versus gay male literature, which is always just porn with a slight veneer of a story on top. Not always, but generally, and I just don't enjoy it. even though I am a gay man. This book, one thing I'm a little bit frustrated about is that this book to me once again proves that it doesn't matter if it's makeup or if it's shampoo or if it's games or if it's books. You know, the people who are in the high level of the YouTube community within that section, they are going to lie to you. Because they're going to get things sent to them for free, and if they give a good positive feedback, then the company will pay them. And this is the same thing that happens in BookTube. So a lot of people got advanced reader copies of this, and of course praised it as the new, most amazing high fantasy story that's ever going to exist, better than Lord of the Rings, better than Game of Thrones, you know, because ka-ching, ka-ching, you know, and it's very, very much just, it happened. It's a complete 3-star. It's not terrible, it's not amazing, but it's just a complete 3-star read. So if you don't know what this book is about yet, it comes in several perspectives. Basically, there's several countries and they follow different religions, and there is a possibility, or there is a fear, that this dragon overlord, dragon king, is after being asleep for 1,000 years, is going to wake up again and create havoc among the world again. And then depending on what country you're in and what religion you follow, you're either for this, because you might think of this dragon as a god, or you might be against dragons, and all this kind of interplay. And the main storyline is between these two women. One woman, she is the queen of one of the countries, and how she's handling the fact that this dragon might come back, and it's technically seen as her job to banish him and control him, because that's what their religious belief is in that country. And then another woman who's from the south, who follows a religion that's kind of similar to theirs, and wants to help this queen possibly make sure that this dragon doesn't come back and something bad happen or whatever. And then we have a couple of other characters who are less important, and I'm not really sure why we even talk about them or have them in this book. So as I said, it's multiple perspective. I really enjoyed the perspective of Ead. That's how I'm saying it, E-A-D, Ead. I've heard people pronouncing it in different ways. She's probably the most interesting character in my opinion. She's the one from the south who was sent to protect the queen, and she's also the one that is in a lesbian relationship with the queen. Sorry, that's kind of a spoiler maybe. Then there's other perspectives. There's a girl called Tane. Her perspective to me was very blah after the beginning. Like at first we learn she becomes a dragon rider, or she's trained to become that kind of was kind of interesting. But then I don't want to give too many spoilers, but then it ends up that she's not a dragon rider, and then it's just kind of like this, she becomes really passive and boring, but she's still so important to the mission, and her chapters get super boring. And then there's one character called Nicholas, who I don't understand why he's even in this book at all. Like he's super boring. All he does is complain about life, and it doesn't add to the story whatsoever. I just don't have any understanding why this Nicholas character was given as much of this book as he was. He really doesn't add to this story at all. Literally, they can take that character out completely, and it would change nothing in this book. So it's almost like just a way to make the book thicker and have more more people to talk about. So, okay, let me say the things I like first, after I kind of went through what it is. I do think the writing is decent. Not super amazing, but the writing is decent. The world building is decent. I do appreciate the fact that the vast majority of the main characters are women and people of color, and it's always nice to read something from, other perspectives than, straight white men. Even though I personally don't have any problem with straight white men, as even though that's nowadays everyone's supposed to hate straight white men and how terrible they are. I don't have a problem with them, but it is nice sometimes to read about people in different situations and different backgrounds. So I think that was good. What was bad about it? Number one, I bought this more so not because I'm not really that big of a fantasy reader. I'm not that intrigued by fantasy and dragons and all this kind of stuff. So that was not my thing. I kind of was intrigued because it was hyped as like it's this new it's a feminist fantasy novel, and it's all about, you know, all the main characters are women, and there's a lesbian romance and all this kind of stuff. And it was such a slow burn, which to some degree I can appreciate because I don't like insta romance. It's like, oh my god, their eyes met, oh my god, they fell in love. So the lesbian romance between the two main characters, it was a very, very slow burn. I mean, but like it was a slow burn. I mean, just nothing. It's just world building for the first 600 pages. I mean, nothing. No, it's not bad writing, and it's like you can get through it, but just nothing happens for the first 600 pages out of an 800-page book. And then when they finally do get together, it's kind of just kind of briefly like, okay, they're together now, and you know. And I was just like, where? This is not a romance. Like, where's the romance? I'm like, I kind of felt cheated by it. And the main problem I had, and this is the part where, like, literally when I got to the last 100 pages, I was just like, I cannot believe I just spent so much time and effort reading this book, this 800 plus page book, and they're gonna do this crap to me. If any of you guys watched the Game of Thrones TV show, you guys were probably as equally as upset as I was with it, where we had, how many seasons were there? 6, 5? And it was just constant, nonstop. The White Walkers are coming. 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 And it was just this build up and this build up and this build up and this build about the White Walkers. And then they were completely defeated in one episode. One episode, they defeated the White Walkers, and it just felt so. It just was stupid. It was just stupid. I was like, really? You just built this up for 5 freaking seasons, and then they were destroyed in one episode? It just made it seem so silly. It was like, really? Were they that big of a threat then? And that is exactly what happens here. For 700 pages, the Dragon King, I'm giving him Dragon King name, I don't know, whatever he was, the main dragon, he's coming back. He's going to come back. It's going to be so terrible. The main dragon's going to come back. He's going to come back. It's going to be so terrible. It's going to be so terrible. The main dragon. 700 freaking pages. We hear about this dragon who's going to come back, and he's just going to completely wreck the world. And he comes back, and he is defeated within 10 freaking pages. And I just was like, are you kidding me? 700 pages of, oh, this Dragon King, he's the worst, he's the most powerful, he's gonna lay waste to the whole land. And then within 10 pages, it was barely even a fight. It was like there was just nothing. Like, they defeated him like this. It was so simple. Oh my god, I can't even tell you guys how frustrated I was. I was like, I can't believe now I have 100, maybe not 100, but maybe like 50 more pages to read. And they've already, it was like, what is left? And it was like a 50-page epilogue at that point. Like, for me, this is a 2-star. Sorry. Like, no. That drove me crazy. And after I finished that big fatty, I just was like, okay, I have like 2 more days before the month is over. I just want like something quick and easy so I can, get through it. And so I did not read this as a child. The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. I actually found this book when I was in the Maldives. And I was like, oh, I've never read this. So I just kind of took it with me. I don't know. I'm like, it's not easy I'm not sure how to judge, children's books. Children's books are generally nonsensical. This book is nonsensical. Like, the plot is really stupid if you really think about it. the actions of the characters are stupid. 1 minute, the one thing I will say, which I always thought was really interesting in both cartoons and in books that are meant for children. So how like children seem to really enjoy the idea of talking animals. Like you see it in cartoons all the time, you see it in comic books, you see it in books for children. There's always talking animals. Something I always think is very strange is when we are in a world where animals can talk, that animals still eat other animals. So like in this book, for those of you guys who read it, do I need to tell you guys what this is about? It's about 4 children. They go into a wardrobe that leads them into a different world where it turns out that they have this destiny that they need to fulfill to bring peace to this world. Okay, that's a really quick synopsis. But anyway, once these 4 kids land in this other world, they meet this talking beaver, and this beaver takes them to their home, and they eat fish, and they eat ham, and I'm like, in a world where animals can talk, it seems almost cannibalistic to me that they would eat other animals. I just always found that really strange when they do that in cartoons. It's like you see, talking dogs eating chicken or something, and it's like something about that just seems weird to me. But anyway, I don't know how to rate this. I mean, I think for a children's book it's okay. It's a little bit older, so you still see a lot of very defined women and men roles. There's like this whole thing where it's like women can't go to war. That's just not a place for women. I don't know. I guess it's a 3-star. Okay, so that was my March wrap up, and yeah, hopefully you guys are doing well. If you have any feedback, if you have any questions on these books, if you have book recommendations, that's of course always very welcome. And overall, hopefully you guys are safe and take care. Bye.